Hi, today we're going to make Manicotti. We're going to do 3 cheese Manicotti, and then we're going to do a spinach and veal, but I may not have spinach, so I'm going to use the kale that I just picked out of my garden. So first things first is we need to make our crepe mix. So I have 2 cups of flour in my bowl. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, so probably a good teaspoon of salt for some flavor. I'm going to add 6 eggs, and I'm going to add a cup and a half of water to start. And I may need another half a cup or quarter cup to make sure that this batter is nice and thin. So the flour that I'm actually using today is gluten-free, so you can do these crepes gluten-free. I've done it before. If you're not gluten-free, you can use regular all-purpose flour. So I'm just whisking this, and as you can see, it is fairly thick. I want this thinner, so I'm going to add another quarter cup of water. And that's it, it's done. If it gets thicker, you can always add some more water. If you don't want to use water, you can use milk. It's whatever you prefer. Okay, so this is now going to sit in the fridge for about an hour or off to the side of the table for about a half hour or so while we work on our fillings. For our meat filling, I have about a pound of ground beef. It can be veal, it can be chicken, it's whatever you want. I have the heat on medium, and what we're going to do is we're going to add some olive oil to this. Okay, about 2 tablespoons. And we're going to brown the meat, and as the meat begins to brown, then we're going to add some onion and garlic. Now, for the ricotta filling, I have about 2 pounds of ricotta, and I want to add my 3 cheeses to it. So the 3 cheeses that I'm going to use, one is going to be mozzarella, because I love the stringiness of mozzarella. So I'm just going to shred this. I'm going to probably use about, I don't know, I'd say about a cup of mozzarella. I'm also going to use some Asiago cheese, because I like the sharpness of the Asiago. Now you use whatever you have in the fridge. It doesn't mean that you have to use exactly what I'm using. So that goes in. Okay. I'm going to use some grated grano padano, which is a Parmesan. I'm going to put in about half a cup of that. It's going to need a touch of salt because there won't be enough salt from the cheese. So I'd say about another half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add some of the fresh oregano that I picked from my garden, that's left over from actually last year's garden. So really quick chop of that. It'll add a nice flavor to it. If you don't like oregano, you don't have to use it. So that goes in. I have some dried parsley that I dried from my garden last year. And then last, I add 2 eggs. And then what I want to do with this is I want to mash it up. Incorporates all the flavors, and then I'm going to let it sit in the refrigerator until we're ready to use our filling. So give this a quick mix. This is the same way I would make my ricotta filling if I were going to make a lasagna as well, which I've done before. And that's it, right there. It's mixed, it looks delicious. I'd give it a taste, but you might freak out because it's got raw eggs in it, but as it sits, the flavors will come out. So inside my veal, beef, your chicken filling, whatever you decide to use, I like to also add spinach, but I don't have spinach. because I'm not going to the grocery store this week, it doesn't seem like. So what I found in my garden was this beautiful kale that I had planted last year. And it seemed to survive the winter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a coarse chop. And I'm going to substitute the kale for the spinach. Now, if you don't like spinach, you don't have to put it in. It's just that I know it would make some of my trainers happier if I threw some kind of green vegetable in here whenever I can. So I've cleaned it up. Again, it doesn't have to be extremely small because as it goes into the beef mixture, it will wilt. And you use as much of it or as little of it as you like. Meat is browning. There's a lot of liquid in the bottom, which is okay. I'm okay with that right now. I'm going to add my onions and garlic. And I'm going to cook this. I'm just going to turn up the heat a little bit more. So I want the onions and the garlic to get shiny to bring out some flavor. And the one thing that this needs now will be some salt and pepper. So we add some salt. Some pepper. Give it a little mix. The meat is cooked. The onions are getting shiny and see-through. We're going to need to give this a little taste to make sure that we have enough seasoning. That's good. And then I'm going to add that kale, and I'm just going to wilt it in. It's going to take about a minute or so. You don't have to fully cook the kale or the spinach if you're using spinach, because the heat of the pan and the meat will completely cook it. And these pans are ready to go. So I grab 1/3 cup of batter and I just pour it on the pan, and I'm swirling it to cover the bottom of the pan. Now the pan I'm using right now is the perfect size for the crepes that we want for the Manicotti. This pan is a little bit bigger, but I can still work my way around it. It'll be okay. Not worried about the edges being pretty because we're going to tuck them in. Okay, and I'm also not looking for a lot of color on these crepes because we're going to end up putting them in sauce. So we're going to use the marinara sauce that I did in earlier episodes. And if you didn't want to use marinara, you could use bechamel as well. So once you start to see it bubbling, you can see that it's starting to bubble. It needs to be flipped. Now you could use your spatula or you could use your fingers if you're a professional at it, and you'll see that there is just a little bit of color on that. Okay, that's pretty much all you need. Once the pans get hot, this becomes really quick. So about every 45 seconds to a minute, you should be making a crepe. And then I can just slide it out and put it on top. And I repeat the process. A little bit of oil. 1/3 cup of batter, swirl. Let it sit. I can look at the other one. I'll use a spatula on that one for you. It doesn't take long for it to settle. Once it slides in the pan, it's pretty much ready. Okay, out it goes onto the plate. Our two fillings are made, so we have our veal and kale filling. our ricotta here. Our crepes are already done. As you can see, we have several to fill. Okay, what I like to do is, if you have one at home, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. I like to put the ricotta in a piping bag. If you don't have it, you can always just spoon it on. This, I just find that it's easier. And I'm just gonna cut the tip of this off. Make sure we get rid of the plastic. I'm gonna make a little bit of room here. In the bottom of my pan, I have some sauce that we made earlier, and I have some water. And now I can lay out my crepes on my clean counter. And I'm going to pipe my ricotta on the end. A piece of mozzarella that's stuck there. Perfect. Then what I do is I come with a roll. I tuck in the two sides. If you want, you don't have to. And I continue to make my roll, just like an egg roll. And I lay it in the pan. And I repeat the process. Put it in the pan. So depending on the size of the pan that you have, you might be able to get 4 or 5 across. Okay, once your pans are full with your manicotti, you want to take the sauce that you made and you want to put a layer of sauce on top. Spread it on. You're also going to probably want some extra sauce for when you serve them. So make sure that you reserve some or just make a little bit extra. Remember, this doesn't go bad. I like to make sauce in bigger batches and then sometimes just put it back in mason jars and seal them so that you have them for easy access, easy cooking, especially when we start back to work, because we're not going to be in COVID-19 for the rest of our lives. Okay, so sauce, then last thing, some Parmesan cheese on top. I like Parmesan cheese. And then we wrap them. So I put a piece of parchment paper or wax paper on top. I don't like aluminum foil to touch the tomato. Shiny side down, I wrap these up. And then in a 400-degree oven they go for about an hour till they're hot, and then you want to uncover them and you want to brown them for about another 20 minutes. Fresh right out of the oven. And here it is, our meat and 3 cheese manicotti, plated, ready to go, all for you. Bon appetit.